Welcome to Electorama Weekly. Today we're talking about Burlington, Vermont in 2009 and beyond. In 2009, there was an instant runoff voting election. I'll note that instant runoff is most often referred to as ranked choice voting these days. In this election, the tallying method did not elect the candidate that would have beaten the other candidates head-to-head using the same ballots. Burlington 2009 gets discussed a lot by election methods people, most of whom know little about Burlington politics. As it turns out, there's somebody who knows both about Vermont politics and about election methods reform. We'll explore that election and more in a moment. But first, I'm Rob Lanfear, founder of the Election Methods mailing list, co-founder of electorwiki.org, and board member for the Equal Vote Coalition, though I'm not speaking in any official capacity today. I'm joined by Taylor Eigen-Fisher and Carlo Stefano.
I'm Taylor Eigen-Fisher. I'm a mathematician who studies kind of social choice theory and mostly approval voting. You can find my stuff at eigentaylor.github.io.
All right, I'm Carlo Stefano. I'm an environmental science student at Sam Houston State University. I love approval voting. I love star voting. I love Condorcet. I'm really interested in voting science stuff, and you'll find me on YouTube under Carlo Stefano. Same thing with Discord. And yeah, that's me.
Cool. And our guest today is Robert Bristow-Johnson, often referred to as RBJ, a longtime Burlington resident who is also a staunch Condorcet method advocate. I started an email interview of Robert available online way back in 2020. We'll maybe resume that interview or rather start again from the beginning. Robert, thank you for joining us.
All right, you're welcome.
Anyway, so now I'm assuming you weren't born in Burlington. Tell me, based on what I heard, tell me how you got to Burlington in 2009.
Well, I got to Burlington in the year 2000, and it was because the company I was working with moved the office from Montclair, New Jersey to Burlington, Vermont. That company is now known as Sound Toys. It was known as Wave Mechanics at the time. So my background is that I'm an electrical engineer, and I do digital signal processing, and I write algorithms that process samples from an A to D converter that's connected to a guitar or connected to a microphone or some instrument. And I process those samples to get some other sound coming out that somebody wants. And I know how to do reverb, but I have gotten paid to do that once. I know how to do a lot of things. Maybe my specialty was in pitch shifting and pitch detection. There is something called the Audio EQ Cookbook that I did that now appears in the W3 thing, you know, that W3.org thing. I don't know.
That's a Worldwide Web Consortium. I'm assuming you're
So there's something called the Audio EQ Cookbook that lives there that I did the math for, and it was really just a graduate student exercise. Practically, there were all sorts of like books and papers out that had formulas for doing certain kinds of filters, and they didn't exactly match. And sometimes it's because we need to do a trig identity substitution or something to come up with different equations. And I was able to kind of tie it together into a single document, and that's the Audio EQ Cookbook. That's all that is.
So did you vote in the 2009 Burlington election?
I did. Oh yeah, I was living in, by the way, before 2009, IRV, instant runoff voting, was also used in Burlington in 2006. That was the first time it was used. And the mayor, that will be a common name you're going to hear, Bob Kiss, was first elected in 2006. And the mayoral term in Burlington is 3 years. And so, and instant runoff voting was brought to Burlington by a guy named Terry Boricius, and you can look him up. He's written some books, and he is a guy trained in social choice. And he was also at one time, even before my day in the 90s, he was a legislator. But he brought IRV to Burlington, and when they enacted it, because they're kind of testing it out, it applied only to the mayoral position, the election for mayor. And maybe one of the reasons why is that they didn't think that there would be very many three-way races in any of the ward city council elections. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes we have trouble getting even two candidates to run, you know. And so it was only really in the mayor's race that there were multiple candidates winning, and the vote totals got to be kind of low, you know. Back in 1983 or something. I don't know. I wasn't here then. I'm not a 20th century Vermonter. But when Bernie Sanders was first elected mayor, he ran as an independent, and it was first past the post, and he barely won by 12 votes. And then, as a consequence of Bernie, and because he's fairly charismatic and also hit the groove well for the hippies here in Burlington, Vermont. Because of that, a political party got started, and it's called the Vermont Progressive Party. And at least as I see it, when I look across the United States, I believe the Vermont Progressive Party is the most successful third party in the country, because if you measure success by getting people elected to office, and there are, even though Bernie never has put a P by his name, there are people in the Burlington City Council, and there are people maybe in the Montpelier City Council too. I'm not sure. And then Brattleboro is another kind of hippie town. But there are people in the Burlington City Council, and there are legislators in our state legislature that put a P by their name. And I don't know if you're going to find much of that third party stuff in other states. So we have Republicans in Vermont, we have Democrats in Vermont, and we have progressives. So, about 2009, I don't know. What else do you need to know about 2009?
Yeah, actually, I guess to go even deeper into that, what, in your words, what actually happened in that election? What mathematically happened in that election?
Happened? Sure. So it's an instant runoff voting election, ranked choice voting, but a form of ranked choice voting. We can argue semantics maybe later.
Sure.
And it was the very second IRV election we had in Burlington. And what happened, if you were going to give it a title, is something that is often called the center squeeze effect. But what happened is that the Condorcet winner, the winner who beats anyone they meet head to head, that Condorcet winner was not elected in that election, even though one existed. The reason why that's uncommon is because all a Condorcet winner needs to do, if they beat everybody head to head, all they need to do, and what a head to head race is precisely what happens in the IRV final round. So all they have to do is get into the final round, and they will always win the final round. They never lose the final round. And it turns out, and in order to be the pairwise champion or this head-to-head winner, it's the term I like to call it is the consistent majority candidate, but that's 3 words, and they didn't like that at the Better Choices meetings that I was at. I guess to be the Condorcet winner, you're going to have some level of support, and all you need is enough support to get into the final round, and then you'll win. So of course, then if the Condorcet winner did not win in Burlington in 2009, he didn't get into the final round, and he was eliminated in the semifinal round. That's when there are 3 candidates, and he was the candidate in the center on the political spectrum. He was the Democrat.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, I can pull up some papers myself too, if it's okay with you, or some diagrams, and I'll try to do that.
Well, I don't want to switch diagrams. It took me a while just to load this.
Okay, sure. Okay,
but yeah, let's talk about this election. So you know, you were describing, and I'll increase the font size so that we can see it on video. But yes, so we've got, you know, Bob Kiss was the winner, using instant runoff voting. We had that first round, though, and several rounds.
there are 3 rounds.
There were more than 3, according to my calculations.
I
realize that you don't want to acknowledge there was more than 4 candidates, but there were. So it was
there's a batch elimination. There are 3 rounds. There was batch eliminated, which is something that you can do with IRV. Batch
it depends
elimination.
on which jurisdiction you're in, and it depends. Like these days, they all do batch elimination. So I guess
we had it on that was turned on back then.
2005. I kind of doubt it, honestly.
No, I'll have to get you the document. I mean, I have it in my folder here, but I have the official city document. But there were 3 rounds. The first round, 3 candidates were eliminated, or 4 if you want to include write-in.
Were Dan Smith, Jason Simpson, and the other write-ins? Because I think we had multiple write-ins.
Right. Dan Smith and James Simpson and the write-ins were eliminated in that first round.
Okay.
And then in the second round was the
semifinal. Is there an official website that says that?
Unfortunately, not anymore. There was a website called burlingtonvotes.com, and you can get this table. You can get this information from what do you call the web archive? The Wayback Machine. From the Wayback Machine.
Sure.
But you'd actually have to send an email to the clerk of the city clerk and get that information from that. So let me if you want, I don't know if you want to transfer, or I maybe I can just paste this in the text because it's pure text. I got a text file. Do you want me to give it to you? It's not that big.
Well, let's not do a bunch of tech transfer stuff while we're on this call. So,
all right.
Taylor gave me a URL to what was the report that you gave me, Taylor?
It's a site ranked.vote. So I believe it's a site that's maintained by like Felix Sargent. And so
yeah. All right, and that one's also interesting. I suppose I can maybe pull that one up, but regardless, I mean, this, like, the thing that this one points out, and I want to bring that up, is this site shows, you know, if we go over to the last rounds where you had Kurt Wright and Bob Kiss and Andy Montrol.
That's the second to the last round.
Second to last round. Like, this is going to be accurate on that front.
Yeah.
And you're going to see, you know, like over 1,500 people had Andy Montrol as their second choice.
Yep.
Of the Kurt Wright voters.
Yep.
So this is hovering over here. We see who the second choice voters were. And we had Andy Montrol and Bob Kiss. And you see Andy Montrol overwhelming among Bob Kiss voters. Andy Montrol was way more popular than Bob Kiss.
Right. Among Kurt Wright voters.
And then with Kurt Wright, well, that was Kurt Wright voters.
Right.
And then with Andy Montrol voters, let's see here. What was the second choice? The second choice is
he was the one split, and he's in the middle. It's going to be more evenly split.
it really wasn't actually. It was Bob Kiss was
Oh, yeah.
more popular.
You're right, 2-1. Well, and it did. See, Kurt Wright was the plurality winner, and so that right there is what brought Bob Kiss ahead of Kurt Wright, and why Bob Kiss won, because of that split that you see right there.
Yeah.
And that's different than Alaska in 2022. And we can talk about the comparisons later, but this was a come from behind victory, which is something that Fair Vote likes to tout, like, no, this is when IRV really, or when RCV really makes a difference. They come from behind victory. So IRV did prevent us, well, not really, because our law is a little different, but did prevent us from electing a Republican who was the plurality winner. But we're in a town that Republicans are not the plurality, are not, yeah, they're not the plurality. Well, right. And they're certainly not the majority. And this can be compared to Alaska, but a little bit differently, where the Republicans are the majority and the Democrats aren't. But IRV prevented Kurt Wright from being elected, sorta. It turns out that our law was if nobody gets 40%, they have a delayed runoff, 2 or 3 weeks later. And that could have turned out different. But in fact, the third most preferred candidate, which was Kurt Wright, the Republican, he was the plurality winner.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Bob Kiss was the second place in the first choice votes.
So by the way, I brought up the website that Taylor brought up just to show that, like, yes, he won a plurality of the first place votes, and
right.
And even like got up to 45% of all of the transfer votes.
Oh, it was a close vote between Kurt and Bob. It was only 252 votes difference.
And what's super interesting here is, I think we might be able to see this better. I don't know. Does this site sort of give you okay, it shows the exhausted. That's what matters, right? Like the exhausted votes.
Right.
There was 6.8% which were exhausted, which is basically the people that like they didn't vote for anybody that made it to the final round.
There were 1,200. Right. You're right. You're right.
And it looks like a lot of those folks were, Andy Montrol and Dan Smith voters.
Well, there were some Andy Montrol voters that did not rank second choice. And I'm going to send you a link, unless you have it already, Rob. I'm going to send you the link to my regular paper that I plug, because the one that got published did not have these diagrams, and that makes me angry that, that I was unable to.
You should definitely. I mean, do you want to share this with everybody? Like,
yeah. This is the paper that I just clinked it in there.
Put a link to it in the show notes for sure. Then,
do you want me to show it from mine, or do you want me to give you the link to the paper?
Well, okay, I can stop sharing if you want to share.
No. Why don't you do it? There's a link to the paper. Just click the link. It's in the chat.
Okay. All right.
Click that, and then
we doing on time, Taylor.
We're at 19 minutes.
Okay, wonderful. So let's see here. So I've got. Oops, I got to share it.
You want to get to figure 1. In around page 8. And this is a demonstration of the center squeeze effect.
Okay, so yes, so this is the failure of instant runoff voting to accomplish the very purpose, blah, blah, blah. All right. Yeah.
Go to page 8 is where.
Page 8. Right. So you wanted these diagrams in there.
Okay.
Huh?
Well, there's those that has the vote totals, but just go down and look at that. That is the beginning of the center squeeze effect. Those are the first choice votes, at least, or those promoted to first choice in the semifinal round. And I have them oriented with the leftist candidate on the left and the Republican candidate on the right. And I'm using standard colors for, I'm using green for progs instead of the Green Party.
Well,
right.
yeah. I mean, you saw the diagram that I created that scales the voters to individual.
But it put Montrol on the right. I'm putting them in the. Okay, now scroll down to the next to figure 2, which is in the next page, right there. Yeah. That is the first choice and the second choice votes. At least are those making it to second choice between those top 3 candidates, and you can see there's a lot more blue in there. Now, it's not Borda or it's not Buckland. So we don't just add up all the blue and add up all the red and add up all the green. So if it was Buckland, we would do that. And you could see it's obvious that Montrol would win if it was Buckland voting, but we're not doing Buckland voting. But what you have to do is go ahead and scroll to the next figure 3. Oh, figure 3, all I did is I wrapped around the right voters that voted for KISS are wrapped around to the left there, wrapped around to the left. You're right. And the KISS voters that had a second choice for right are wrapped around to the right. That's all I did there. Then figure 4, you'll see what the comparison was made between the two candidates that made it to the final round. And KISS gained enough votes from Montrol voters that he was able to beat right. So there's more green there than there is red. Mm-hmm. But if you scroll to the next one, there's a lot more blue there than red too, even more. And there's more blue there than there is green. And it should have been looking at those two. So the center squeeze effect is because it could not see those second choice votes in the semifinal round. IRV can't see is opaque to those second choice votes. It appears that Montrol was weak. So if you go back to figure 1, it only appears that Montrol is weak in that figure, but you go to figure 2 right away, you can see that he's not so weak.
All right. So
that is the center squeeze effect illustrated.
I lost track. Whose turn is it to ask a question?
I suppose I could ask because so what we could say is that the voters who ranked right first and Montrol second,
right, they were screwed.
So, yes. So I was wondering, would you like to explain exactly how they were screwed?
Well, they were screwed because they were promised that they could that it would be safe for them to, and also consider this, in Burlington, Vermont, the Republican Party is the third party. All right. So they were promised that they could rank their favorite number 1 and do that safely without causing the election of the person they least wanted to see elected. And indeed, that was false. So if you like my paper, if you go to table 2.
Oh, whoops. Sorry.
It's okay. You can use yours too. That's fine too. That's fine. If of these right vote, of these 1,510 Kurt Wright voters that marked Montrol above Bob Kiss, if 1 out of 4 of them, it's 300 and some, I don't know exactly, but 1 out of 4, if they had recognized that, gee, I don't think my guy going to get elected in this liberal town, so I'm going to have to bump the other guy up that I don't really like, but he's better than the candidate that I hate. I'm going to have to bump him up in order to prevent the candidate I hate from getting elected. They were promised they wouldn't have to do that. They were promised that they could mark Kurt Wright and cover their ass with a vote for Andy Montrell, and they wouldn't be helping Bob Kiss get elected. But in fact, they caused the election of Bob Kiss simply because they marked Kurt Wright as their first choice vote.
I guess I wanted to sort of lead that a bit into your own personal philosophy when it comes to voting reform.
Sure.
Would you like how specifically would you describe that your philosophy was affected by that? By how did that inspire or influence your philosophy? Because I know that you have a more specific philosophy than most in the voting reform community.
Yeah, maybe I do. So I'm going to paste this into the chat. It's from another paper that I'm working on, but it's not done yet. So there are a few things that are kind of fundamental about elections if they're going to be fair, free, and democratic. And I start with it has to be well warned, and it has to be unhindered access to the poll. The secret ballot is pretty important. And then number 4, you'll see, is the equality of enfranchisement, that our vote has to be equal. And it has to count equally. We can't have a class of persons that their vote counts more than some other class of persons. And then there's process transparency. We can get into that later. That's also an issue. But in the equality of our vote, we need more than just that the rules are the same for everybody. This is where Mark Fraunhofer, is it Fraunhofer? How do I say his name?
Fraunmeyer.
That's right. Sorry. This is where Mark and I disagree. To me, it is not enough to just simply say, well, one person, one vote just means that we got the same rules for you as we got for you, and everybody's under the same rules, and so we're all equal. One person, one vote means that when we're counting votes, we're counting bodies. And if you look at the paper that I wrote, I opened that thing up with, which is kind of funny since I'm from North Dakota. I opened it up with a Supreme Court ruling from the state Supreme Court in North Dakota from the turn of the previous century. So it was around 1911 or something like that. And they were, because around then, Buckland voting was kind of taking off in some places in the West, in Colorado, Grand Junction, and some other. And so then some states had, it was kind of like what's happening now with ranked choice voting, where there's some state legislatures rebelling against ranked choice voting. They were dealing with Buckland voting like that back, 110 years ago or whenever it was.
Go further on that equal valued vote thing. The quality of enfranchisement.
What is important is that we're not just counting marks on a ballot. We're counting people. We're counting bodies. And so what has to happen if our votes are going to be counted equally, if you have an election system, and I'll make that a box. This is why I'm an electrical engineer, and I could have prepared a diagram, but I didn't. But think of the method as an algorithm in a box, and you have an input going in this side of the box, and you got an output coming out the other side. The input is how voters voted, and the output is who got elected, the outcome. And if you have, I often illustrate it with 99 voters, and you have 50 voters voting for A and 49 voters voting for B. If B is elected, that means effectively you could have a system where the rules are B voters count 6% more than A voters. And so the B voters, even though there's only 49 of them, their votes added up to 52 and beat or 51, I should say, and beat those 50 voters that were A voters because their votes counted more each. Or you could put into the rules of that algorithm, you could put in the Electoral College. because you could go back to 2000 or 2016. You know, how many voters voted, how many voters marked their ballots that Hillary Clinton is a better choice than Donald Trump? That's more than the number of people that marked their ballots that Donald Trump is a better choice than Hillary Clinton. Yet the output of that box was that Donald Trump was elected.
And,
You know,
and before, sorry,
ahead.
finish that last thought that you were going through.
Well, the point is that the system, if you put it in the black box, it's indistinguishable from a system that would have Trump voters count 6% more than Clinton voters.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
In an opaque black box. Even though
and if you can, just in one word, because I know that we're getting like a little short on time.
Right.
Do you think that Condorcet is like one of the only voting methods that can bring that equality? The anything that can allow for Condorcet can bring that.
Nothing can do it perfectly, and so we got
when there's
arrows,
a majority.
But when the Condorcet winner exists, electing the Condorcet winner will never violate one person, one vote, and electing the Condorcet winner will never cause a spoiled election, and electing the Condorcet winner will never result in some voters being punished for expressing their sincere preference on the ballot. That's what we're trying to do with ranked choice voting, is to prevent people from this Duverger law, keep people from being harmed by voting sincerely. And so then the voters instead will be incentivized to vote tactically so that they don't get burned in the election. And what happened in Burlington in 2009 is that some Republican voters got burned because they ranked their first choice as number one. And that caused the election of the Prague that they hated, that they did want to see elected. And there was some politics that happened after that.
So
yeah,
okay, so we get why the we get why instant runoff voting and a lot of the systems don't do a very good job of giving one person one vote. Why isn't star good enough by your account?
Oh,
because you have that last round, which is a pairwise comparison that is one body, one vote.
Right. But like IRV, the question is who gets to be in the last round. IRV is fine about the last round. It's between those two candidates in the last round, IRV picks the correct candidate.
But do you, I mean, but I have yet to see a rational voter strategy that would cause
a Condorcet candidate to lose.
Make it to the final round.
Yeah. I know we disagree about this, but if we had star voting in Burlington, Vermont, and I was voting on a star ballot, unless I could anticipate this center squeeze effect, in which then I deliberately want to harm my favorite candidate because my favorite candidate can't beat the candidate I hate.
I mean,
I deliberately want to harm my favorite candidate. Then I'm going to rank my number two I'm going to score my number two candidate higher up on the star ballot so that my number two candidate will beat my number one candidate from getting into the final round because my number one candidate is unable to beat the guy that I hate. Unless I can anticipate that.
I think you
I'm going to vote 5-1-0 on star.
Don't interrupt me.
Okay.
Robert. You often bring up the word hate. Like voters all hate the opposition.
Oh, I can.
I don't think all voters are like that.
Maybe not. But there's often, I mean, I have to confess that I hate Donald Trump. And if there was an election that had three candidates and somebody was like Trump or somebody like Trump was on one of them, my biggest motivation is to not get that asshole elected. And so then I'm going to have to think about the other two candidates. And I got my favorite, and then I got the candidate that's most likely to be able to beat the Trumper. And I'm going to have to do tactical voting. I'm going to have to consider what I'm going to do.
You're going to have to do that. I understand. So anyway, well, it's always a pleasure talking to you, Robert, and thanks for joining us. To wrap up here, the Electorama monthly newsletters are at electowiki.org/wiki/Electorama news. Corrections and tips can go to news@electorama.com, or you can edit the newsletter directly. It's a wiki. And with that, I'm Rob Lanfear.
I'm Taylor Eigenfisher.
I'm Carlo Stefano.
And I'm just a crazy idiot.
Thanks for joining.
I love it, Robert.
Thanks for joining Electorama Weekly.
Bye.